Netherlands, Dr. Jeroen Stigroen. Social scientist from Summit, Mexico, Dr. Moon Gartalaji. Principal scientist and national PI of All India Network Program on Organic Farming and All India Coordinated Research Project on Integrated Farming Systems, Dr. N. Ravishankarji. Esteemed guest for today's function, Dr. Manoj Kumarji, Joint Director from CPRI, Modipuram, Meerut. Dr. J.P. Singhji, former Director, ICAR-IIFSR. Dr. Prem Singhji, Principal Scientist from IIFSR. Worthy scientists of this institute, scientists of ICAR-IIFSR and NPF centers across the country who are joining this program in online mode, staff of this institute, and my dear fellow friends. I welcome you all in the Foundation Day lecture program to commemorate the 33rd Foundation Day ceremony of ICAR Indian Institute of Farming System Research, Modipuram, Meerut. To begin with the program, may I now request Mr. Vimal Kumar to kindly play the ICR song.
जय जय कृषि परिषद भारत की, सुखद प्रतीक हरित भारत की। कृषि धन पशुधन मानव जीवन, दुग्ध मत्स्य फल यंत्र सुवर्धन। वैज्ञानिक विधि नव तकनीके, पारिस्थितिकी का संरक्षण। शस्य श्यामला छवि भारत की, जय जय कृषि परिषद भारत की। हिम प्रदेश से सागर तट तक, मरुधरती से पूर्वोत्तर तक, हर पथ पर है मित्र कृषक की। शिक्षा शोध प्रसार सकल तक, आशा स्वावलंबित भारत की। जय जय कृषि परिषद भारत की, जय जय कृषि परिषद भारत की।
Thank you, Mr. Vimal. May I now request the director of this institute, Dr. Azad Singh Pawarji, to kindly welcome the chief guest of our today's program, Director, Sustainable Agri-Food Systems in Global South, Summit, Mexico, Madam Phyllis Knapp, by presenting her a stole and a bouquet of flowers. Again, I request the director of this institute to kindly welcome Dr. M.S. Jarji, Principal Scientist and System Agronomist from Summit, India, by presenting his stole and a bouquet of flowers. I request Director Sir to kindly welcome Santiago Lopez Rodora, Senior Researcher from Summit, Mexico. Now I request Director Sir to kindly welcome Dr. Santiago Lopez Rodora, Senior Researcher from Summit, Mexico, by presenting his stole and a bouquet of flowers. Again, I request Director Sir to kindly welcome Dr. Moon Gartalaji, Social Scientist from Summit, Mexico, by presenting him a stole and a bouquet of flowers.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for doing this honor. May I now request the Principal Scientist and National PI of All India Network Program on Organic Farming, Dr. N. Ravishankarji, to kindly welcome the Director of this institute, Dr. Azad Singh Pawarji, by presenting his stole and a bouquet of flowers. with this honor. May I now request Dr. ICAR-IIFSR, Senior Scientist, to kindly welcome Dr. N. Ravishankar sir by presenting him stone and a bouquet of flowers. Thank you, sir. I request the Director ICAR-IIFSR, Dr. S. Pawarji, to kindly welcome the guests and other august gathering for today's occasion. Dr. S. Pawarji.
Director of the food system, Dr. Snap, my friend Dr. Santiago, Dr. Jerome, Dr. Hom, friends and family member of ICAR-IIFSR, Dr. Amazar, Dr. N. Ravishankar sir, my old colleague, Dr. J.P. Singh, Dr. Prem Singh sir, Joint Director, CPRI, Dr. Manoj, all directors of NRM Institute, all CCPI of 74 centers of ICAR-IIFSR, as well as all CCPI of All India Network Program of Organic Farming, scientists and staff of this institute, CPRA as well as CIRC. A very good morning to one and all. Today, we are celebrating the 33rd Foundation Day of this institute, whose journey started way back in 1952 by having a simple fertilizer trial which was the basis of this institute. So, on behalf of my institute and my own behalf, I heartily welcome Dr. Snan from Summit, Mexico, Dr. Santiago, Dr. Hom, Dr. Amazar from Summit, Dr. Jerome Siguru from Washington University, I also welcome our Honorable ADG, Dr. S. Bhaskarji, who is online with us. I welcome all my CCIs who are virtually with us from 94 centers of ICAR-IIFSR as well as NPUF. I also welcome our scientists and staff of 3 institutes of ICAR located in Meerut. Really, it's very happy to know that we have grown up like a national institute, but for this institute, we had to travel a lot. From a simple fertilizer trial, which was initiated in 1952, then it was converted into All India network program on model agronomy, and based on the work, it was given the status of Project Directorate of Cropping System Research with a mandate to monitor, evaluate, and document the cropping system which are being evaluated across India. Later on, farming system concept was introduced, and this institute was renamed as Project Directorate on Farming System Research. Instead of documentation, we started working on different aspects of farming system, whether it was basic or applied research. So the efforts which were made by the scientists of this institute gave an impetus to ICAR that it was upgraded as a national institute, and it was again given the status of Indian Institute of Farming System Research. In that process, we were given the mandate of conducting research and extension on different aspects of integrated farming system as well as organic farming. And this institute has given the justice to both the mandates, as we have developed and documented 60
grain number of grain
which have the potential not only in doubling but increase income of the farmers up to this has encouraged not only us but Government of India, and we were given the assignment, let us go ahead with provision that Government of India or banks should finance it. Farming system comprised of different components. In the policies, component-wise support is given.
नेम प्लेट અને એનો એક કરી દેજો.
You can mute all.
What we have done, we made a comprehensive plan with the help of NABARD, which is a nationalized bank, provide loan, soft loan for agricultural development. We joined hands with them, and 30 bankable farming system model have been developed, documented, which has been accepted by NABARD. And this is possible. Of course, we have done a lot, but the significant contribution of CIMIT and Wageningen University is also there. the untiring efforts of Dr. Santiago, Dr. Jairu, Dr. Hamilgard is also acknowledged in the same practices. While working on making bankable farming system model, we have not ignored the environment. And that was the basic idea how to make climate smart farming system model. Of course, integrated farming system models itself are climate resilient farming system models. To make them climate smart farming system model, the basic idea was to address the climate change impact on agriculture. And this way, we evaluated all these 63 farming system models and we came across that 22 farming system models are carbon negative models. 8 models are carbon neutral models. Means on an average 50% models were climate smart, where we can say agroecology has been addressed completely. Remaining model we started working, and I think within 1 year or 2, the remaining model will also be carbon neutral model. This is the untiring efforts of the scientists working in this institute as well as in the universities and are attached with All India research program on integrated farming system. That was really a fantastic information. In 2003, we started working on organic farming practices. So far, we have developed 60 cropping systems, package of practices of 60 cropping systems, not a single crop. That's a significant achievement. Having these achievements in our hand, we started thinking what government of India is talking about, that is the natural farming. So in 2016, we started working and given a new term, that is integrated organic farming system. There we are trying that at least farmers should not have any dependency on external input. Whatsoever inputs are required in crop production, livestock rearing, or any other secondary agricultural practices which are the indispensable component of farming system of that particular agroecology, that has to be met on farm itself. And we are fully done in that line also. That's why when the question of natural farming came, we came forward and we started working on it. We initiated experiment on 20 centers in 16 states, having 8 cropping systems. Of course, these experiments are new, but indications are coming. After 4 or 5 years, we will have a meaningful information in our hand. Apart from that, we thought to have another dimension in farming system. That dimension was fulfilled by CIMIT. As Dr. M.L. Jad proposed during 2016, that let us work on farming system typology and designing of farming systems based on socio-economic as well as ecological preferences of that particular area. We joined hand with CIMIT. We worked continuously, and in that aspect, training manual was developed, training was provided, and the beautiful part of that work was writing lab. The scientists, wherever they are finding not difficulty, uncomfortableness, that was solved on the spot by a group led by Dr. George, Dr. Santiago, Dr. Jaru. And this has given a significant output in terms of publication of a number of papers which has 2 to 5 impact factors. That publication, of course, that is a scientific achievement, but at an institutional level, we are getting lots of queries, and the institute work has been recognized everywhere. In this way, we go 100% cooperation from our SMD, ICR headquarters, especially Honorable DG sir, DG sir, those who gave a free hand to me to make a decision and implement the program which is in the interest of the institute, in the interest of the scientific fraternity, and finally, it fulfills the requirement of the farming program. So, all those components we have added, we have developed, documented. Another aspect we had covered, that was conservation agriculture. And climate smart agriculture. In that aspect, again, production and productivity of crops in different types of soil. We are working, and even the state of the organic carbon, low carbon, medium carbon, high carbon status, right? What is the production potential? And it is evident wherever the carbon status is higher, more than 0.8, certainly it will be very high. Low input requirement will be there, but at the same time, greenhouse gases emission will be more. How to address this problem? This institute had initiated a number of programs in that direction, and we are getting encouraging result in that aspect also. So, whatever the institute could do since its inspection, we tried not to keep it in the file or in the book or paper. We try to translate it in the farmer's language. We are working with the farmers in the form of on-farm research, in which we are selecting in a particular state high productive district and low productive. So there again, in one district, two blocks, high productive, low productive. Those blocks again, we are having 10 farmers in each villages. We are collecting baseline information, putting all these information into R and designing the models and implementing it. With the participation of farmers and other stakeholders, we are working continuously up to 3 years. After 3 years, we stopped giving all the input and seeing which technology or which component are continued, discontinued, or in between, and what are the reasons. So that is being done in the form of impact study. So under this program on-farm research is separate one, farmer first program is another one, then scheduled caste sub-plan is also another one, and scheduled tribe component is also one. Of course, we are having Mera Gaon, Mera Gaurav, my village, my pride. Program is also there in India. We are working, since we are not distributing any input to the farmers, we are simply providing technical know-how to the farmers. We have observed a significant improvement in the production and productivity, not only in crop, in their livestock component also. So, having all these achievements, now we are working with the United Nations also. Hindon River Basin Program has been sanctioned by Government of India, in which Wageningen University and ICAR-IIFSR is there. We look forward to see CIVIC program is also. Another program is also there. Agroecological based livelihood program, in which ecosystem services under different farming system as well as farming situation is going to be evaluated. So these are some of the things which I wanted to advise the House, all my director colleagues from NRM divisions, all our CCPI of 94 centers, friends from CIMIT and Wageningen University, and to see what best we can do for the upliftment of the farming community with the close collaboration with International Institute International University. We look forward with that. I'm not taking much time. I once again welcome all my colleagues, senior, who are attending this program physically as well as virtually. Of course, our Honorable DDG is also with us by heart, but due to his flight today, I think he is in board now. He is not with us for 2 to 3 hours, and at about 3 to 4 p.m. he will be joining us. I welcome our Honorable DDG at this occasion. So thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you, Director Sir, for the kind welcome address and highlighting the journey and achievement of this institute so far, and also acknowledging the symbiosis of ICAR-IIFSR, CIMIT Mexico, and Wageningen University Netherlands as a part of its glory. Thank you once again for your kind words. Now I take pride in introducing the speaker and the chief guest of today's program, Dr. Celine Snap. SNAP is the Director of Sustainable Agri-Food System Program at CIMIT, which brings together global agriculture economics, system analysis on agri-food innovations, and agriculture systems for development in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. As a professor of soils and cropping systems ecology at Michigan State University and Associate Director of the Center for Global Change and Earth Observations, she led research on sustainable farming, particularly for cereal-based rain-fed systems in Africa and North America. Madam Snap first partnered with CIMIT in 1993 when she developed the mother and the baby trial design. This go-tool for participatory research has developed farmer-approved technologies in 30 countries, for which we heartily congratulate Madam. She has also partnered with local and international scientists to tackle sustainable development goals, improve livelihood, and farm sustainability. Her 200 publications and textbooks addresses co-learning, ecological intensification, and open data to generate relevant science. May I now request the speaker, Madam Celine Snap, to kindly give the Foundation Day lecture. Madam, please.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here today. And thank you for that really impressive overview, Dr. Kanwa. All the directors online, directors with us, my esteemed colleagues from CIMIT, from Wageningen, and most of all, the hardcore agronomists in the room, the farming system scientists, are virtual and here with us. The world is counting on all of you more than ever. We really need to see farming systems and the Indian Institute of Farming Systems Research coming to the fore. You have the deep roots, you have the knowledge, you have the comprehensive scope here in India. We need to have this come to the region and to Africa, where I've been fortunate to work since 1993. So thank you again for this amazing honor to be able to talk on your 33rd Foundation Day. I feel like I have, I'm just a baby in CIMIT, just started in January, but I've been elevated by this opportunity, and I'm just in really in awe of all of you. I'm just a simple agronomist, and to be here to be able to share a few thoughts is, I just hope we're starting a long conversation, building on the shoulders of giants like Emil Jack, who's taught me so much over these years. Thank you again, sir, for being an agronomist, for all of you for being agronomists. I'll be sharing a few thoughts and then we can have discussions. So we all know the challenges, particularly in our cereal-based systems. Diversified systems have all sorts of opportunities, but the ones that produce the food, the staple cereals, are under pressure now like never before. I hope you can hear okay. Right? Okay. So, in fact, the other challenges that it was showing there are how flooding sometimes inundates us. We talk about climate change because of terminal heat. Okay, thank you. Terminal heat issues we're seeing even now in the field with the amazing wheat production, but also drought and flooding. We shouldn't be forgetting inundation that's reducing our soil health. The market challenges. Prices are going up, which is very exciting for farmers, doubling. But what about also our village consumers having to buy in these markets? So there's really a lot of challenges facing us today. And we have to mention the wheat crisis. I'm sure you've seen the headlines. Places like the Middle East, you can see here, where wheat is very much needed. Wheat is a big part of the diet in the Middle East. And about a third of their supplies are coming from where? Ukraine and Russia. We see sub-Saharan Africa, not as much wheat because they're very maize-based places and rice. But for those who eat wheat, it's a huge challenge. Half of their supplies are no longer available. And it's not just Americans that are the sanctions. It's issued, you can pick up wheat harvest in the middle of a war zone. So we have huge challenges, and as we know from the headlines, where is Egypt looking? India. So we really need to address these crises. We also know, we've heard about the greenhouse gas emissions. We now know that large percent come from agriculture. And in the past, the COP26, you may have seen, talked a lot about big oil, about transportation. My big worry is in COP27, who will be the bad guy? Agriculture could be very much in the limelight, but we should be the solution. Farmers can improve soil carbon if they're just given a chance. With conservation agriculture and other ways, they can reduce their footprint by reducing land use change. Water supplies, I think India knows more than ever, we're worried about fossil water and greenhouse gases. So we have these huge challenges. But these are environmental opportunities. I'm going to circle back to this just to point out that a model is being developed here in India that I'm so excited about of carbon credits generated by farmers, helping their own farm, but helping the world as well. But we have to pay for that. But there's many companies ready to show that they are buying carbon credits. All the modalities have not been worked out. And you may know out of COP26, the big solution was what? Not conservation agriculture. It was trees. And can we put trees everywhere? I think you're agronomists, you know, we have to have food. We need the cereals as well. The trees can be a part of the answer, but I think we also need to figure out how to make conservation agriculture and soil, organic matter, organic farming, these ways to improve soil carbon. And you can see it's a win-win. This again from Emil Jasper. You can see it on the one side here, we have after a big flooding event, and I think these inundations have not been enough looked at. In Africa, we face these so much. Droughts, yes, but also floods. And on one side, we have good infiltration, water storage, recap, rehabilitation. We are infiltrating and saving the water conservation. On the other side, we just have flooding, filling the fund. going to talk about a few win-wins, right? In Southern Africa, where I've been privileged to work for so long, in fact, we have seen over $200 an acre, which is a lot in Africa, where people's incomes around 100. Just from increasing their use of drought-tolerant maize, which is maize's life there. Also, the sustainable intensification, conservation agriculture, crop diversification, such as your own institute has pioneered, drought-tolerant maize. All of these things together are making a difference in these very poor farmers, some of the poorest in the world. In Asia, I think you won't be surprised to see Happy Cedar here. This is also an example for the world in terms of how public-private partnerships, long-term work by agronomists, decades of work, building on the rice wheat consortiums back in the day, more than 100,000. In fact, I think this is out of date because of after COVID lockdowns, we're seeing massive and government investments in India, big adoption. And now as farmers figure out how to adopt this and make direct seeding work, they aren't going to go back. They're going to keep doing this, seeing soil health gains. We also have to pay attention to maybe less labor opportunities for women. We have to be thinking about the whole sustainability picture, but this is very promising. Climate science at work. In your climate science, climate smart villages too, very inspiring. So I thought today, what I would talk about is the science. You have very much done innovative work, these R scripts for topographies, these topologies of farms, the village work that we've been hearing about that is really a model for the world. So I thought I'd talk about some of the areas we've been exploring, just to put on the table from CIMMYT's side, about co-designing farming systems, which is has a very long roots, but particularly we're focusing more and more on living laboratories. But what does that mean? So I'll be talking about that. Empowering farmers to innovate. Again, you've done pioneering work in this, but using local digital science. And again, India is really a pioneer. How can we use ICT? Not just to have another app. Sometimes there's a lot of apps out there, but really, how do we reach farmers? How do we empower farmers? And then finally, demand-driven sustainable agriculture development is through hubs. CISA is one of the examples of these hubs. But I think the modalities of how these actually function is a really interesting part. So the first science approach I'm going to talk about is co-design with research platforms. Here's a few examples of what I mean by research platforms. These are long-term experiments. By the way, I was commissioned to do a review by the DFID government by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation a year ago before I joined CIMMYT to look at greenhouse gas mitigation on smaller farms and medium scale farms opportunities. Where did the data come from? It came from a lot from India, from Asia, from CIMMYT collaborations. And so I was so proud that we do have greenhouse data because of these research platforms. We don't have enough. Africa, there's almost no data. Lots of modeling, no data. And you know, that's not a good way to do modeling, very little verification. Big opportunities there. We need more greenhouse gas data on these different climate smart villages. Budgeting, yes. So CIMMYT, I'll just point out, we do have these 17 long-term experiments of different durations around the world, particularly in Mexico, in Southern Africa, and of course, here in India. What I like to think of these is they're not just in isolation, not just sitting on a research station, but as a living laboratory. And what we mean by that is the long-term research experiments are systematically, in some way, engaged with what? Farmers' own experimentation. Surveys, mother-baby trials, different ways to support innovation on farmers' fields. And data, big data, medium-sized data, open data, most of all, is part of this. If we don't share our data, it can't evolve, it can't become knowledge. I always tell my students who tend to want to keep their data on their computer, like, no, we have to get it out in the world, let it grow, let it evolve. And that means open protocols, like we heard about these R scripts with these manuals on topologies. That is publishing protocols, publishing standard operating procedures, publishing working instructions. I think this is how we build the capacity. All of you do amazing work. Your work with students, I think, is even more important, the next generation. And now getting it out there. There may be a small extension K somewhere. There's someone with potential there. They can find that. They can be part of the world community of scientists. in ways that in the past was not possible. So these indicators of sustainable intensification, not just thinking of soil carbon and yields, but broader, we can really push the envelope here. And open data, which I'm going to show a little example of in a minute. So this living laboratory in Southern Africa is another different, not quite as many long-term experiments like you have in India, but we do have a few on farmers' fields that are shown here in the red. Those are the long-term experiments, and then around them are the on-farm experiments. And then beyond that, we have, and I'm going to focus in on Malawi because that's where I worked since 1993, so I know a bit more about this. And we're integrating this Michigan State University work and the Longway University of Agriculture and Research, so Malawi work in with CIMMYT's long-term trials. So we have these on-farm experiments that we call them long-term. It's a little aspirational. Like I hope they're 100-year trials, but at the moment they're about 8 to 4 years, so very short duration, but aspirational. We link them to surveys, and with these open data kit, ODK type approaches, we can really link experiments with on-farm to try and understand how the modalities and how they work much better than we used to. We're looking at things like crop diversification, CA, fertilizer use and time, and so on. What are farmers actually doing? So you can start to see the scope. If you can look on Google Earth and you can see through our website where these are, whether they're intervention farmers, whether there's spillovers, there's control areas, trying to systematically look at adoption, just like you're doing your approach of being 5 years in an area, and then I hear now moving on. In this case, we had from the beginning our baselines, we had intervention farmers, we had controls nearby, so for spillovers, and then we had controls in other villages for true controls. So what do we mean by living laboratories? We come back to data sets and tools. We have better soil sensors. We don't have to just send soil samples off to analysis and then wait a year for them to come back. We can now make measurements right in the field once they're calibrated. We're making sure that sets of the soils are in Africa as well as back at Michigan State or CIMMYT. You can see we're using apps like the LAMP potential one that tells us something about soil color, which color tells us a lot about soil health, especially if you know where you are. Because some soils are naturally black, but if you know that they normally are red in that area and they're black, then it's probably carbon. So we have these ways to understand plant and soil health better in the field. We can involve more people, better science. We're also using remote sensing. As you know, they put more satellites up every year. You get access to some of this data to better understand context, the NDVI, the region. In some work in India, of course, you've actually gone to yields and each farm in Africa, particularly in Malawi, the fields are very small, it's more challenging, but we can still get an idea of the environmental potential of a particular area. Out of this, so I want to make it clear that we're not just doing this work because we love to talk to farmers and want to come up with new typologies. No, we are actually trying to generate technologies that have potential in different environments that we can then recommend to policymakers, tell them the trade-offs. Sometimes there's trade-offs. We're talking about labor issues and so on. But this is a doubled up legume system. It's ground up with pigeon pea. You might recognize it because it actually originally came from India, where farmers have designed this doubled up legume. But it never been tried in Malawi. And it's actually been a way to improve soil carbon while you still get 2 crops. Agroforestry was what we were promoting at first, and through action research, Mother Baby Child, we found eventually that farmers just weren't taking trees up for their own fertilizer sake. They wanted a soil fertility enhancement, break from maize. So these are very maize dominant systems. So the next year you have to put maize back. But this has become recommended by Malawi in 2016. It was released as a technology, particularly for the poorest farmers to improve their fertilizer efficiency. So you can use it in natural farming, but it's very much used within sustainable intensification. It's now spread to Zambia, to Mozambique, into the region. So you can see how this meets nutritional needs while also improving soils. And we discovered this through this ongoing work, where again, agroforestry, unfortunately, in this area was not working. But this type of agroforestry, the pigeon pea, which of course you recognize, and groundnuts, did find its place. But it turns out that we also needed to understand soil carbon more. There's a lot of talk about soil health now. Soil health is but is soil health, is it, and how much do we need? What amount of biodiversity? Is it always more microbial diversity better? Do we infinite amount of soil carbon? Is that needed? Well, we found that in this area, this type of soil textures, about 0.9% soil carbon is where you saw a huge difference in fertilizer response. As soon as you get above that, the soils tend to be better, function well, we get good fertilizer response in our maize. If it's below that, you need to just abandon maize fertilizer and focus on manure, legumes, even some areas, some other cash crops. Get away from maize, because maize requires an environment that includes enough carbon. Also weeding interacted. So you can start to see that through these on-farm living labs, we start to understand things more sophisticated way. And what used to be very productive lands, even in my lifetime, in 1993 when I first came, you put on fertilizer, maize would jump out of the ground. Now we have these parasitic weeds like striga. We've got issues of phosphorus and zinc deficiencies that we never saw in the past. So unfortunately, just growing maize after maize and fertilizer alone has not done the job. So now with policy, we're working with policy and ag economists in Malawi, and they're starting to realize that they can't just, they've been making fertilizer free to farmers basically, but they now also need to make legume seeds more accessible, training around compost and other types of rehabilitation, because they're really in trouble in that part of the world because they've just taken one crop, one fertilizer approach. So we've learned something through living labs, but what do we mean by empowering farmers? Is that the next, and communities? What does that mean? What does it look like? So I'm just going to try and give a few examples. So this big issue of variability of soils is kind of close to my heart as a soil scientist, plant nutritionist originally. It's very hard to give recommendations when this came from one farm in Malawi. So you have soils that are heavy clay, soils that are alpha soils that well drained. You have all this variability, and how is a farmer to manage that? Well, very experienced farmers may know how to do them, but many are migrants. Maybe they're women that didn't used to have to farm in that area. So there are a lot of young farmers that just don't know how to manage this. We need recommendations so that even experienced farmers can see better placement of their fertilizer, for example, and can see that they use very low residue, a lot of disturbance systems. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities in the systems. But as I said, we're coming in with new apps, and this is one of them. I hope you can see this woman is holding a small sensor, which combined with a smartphone. In extension now in Malawi, they're able to take soils right in real time, put it in a little petri dish. If it's dry, if it's wet, that changes the soil color. But there's a long dry season in Malawi. So they can now tell farmers, this is your soil carbon. You need to improve this here. This is your soil carbon. Here you can put your fertilizer and you'll get some good response. So simple messages. But in the past, our maps were not very good because we just used remote sensing type maps. It wasn't well diagnosed. It wasn't very good resolution, and it was not very correlated with our lab. I mean, it'd be ideal if we could do combustion carbon, which is your gold standard. If we could do that everywhere, that would be perfect. But we found that sending off soil samples is very expensive, takes a long time. So if we can do this crude method, I can say it's crude, 80% correlation, so I'm pretty happy with that. And we could get hundreds of samples on every farm because it's free basically once you've bought this $400 sensor. So we're really excited. This is kind of taking us to the next level in terms of rapid feedbacks to farmers and communities so they can make their own decisions. This is just showing a little modalities of how this is, and this is an interesting lab because they're called oursci.net, and they believe in open data. So we can work with them. Obviously, we work with private sector, but we have to make sure that the data comes back, because if you just send recommendations back, if things change, it's not giving knowledge. It's not empowering people. It's just telling them what to do. So it's a different modality of working together, a farmer first approach, we can say. So we found that texture was also important, not surprisingly, but luckily you can hand texture. So we're still working on these models, and we're very interested in sharing this knowledge, and I think with all the IT expertise in India, we can maybe take this to the next step. These are the type of maps. Like, for example, these maps were generated by geographers working with me. So we have the data, but I can't turn around and give a map to a community as yet. But it should be easy to develop an app that takes all that data right in the village level and tells them what their map of their soil carbon. So we see in the left, that's what you get if you use the remote sensing grids data. It's not very good, doesn't provide us a lot of information. And then in the middle, we have our lab combustion, but that's took thousands of dollars because you had to send each soil sample off, analyze it, bring back the data, make the map. But on the right, that's our handheld sensor. And so right there, we could generate all that data, tell them for each field, and then we generated the maps. So I think we're moving forward in this approach. And my colleague at the Longway University of Agriculture, he is an extension professor, and his goal is to transform extension in Malawi. It's really amazing to be in his presence because in the past, technology transfer was very big. People were basically told what to do. Malawi had a very top-down system. And now he's trained up extension. You find them everywhere in Malawi. He's brought in he's got parliament to invest in more professors of extension, people on the field, and they're all about empowering people, about catalyzing what's needed here, which might be something different. Pigeon bees here, but maybe over here it's conservation agriculture. Maybe over there it's mango improvement. So fit for purpose, different options. And so you can see it's an empowered, like this farmer is telling us about papaya, and yet we're field agronomists. We were thinking about maize, but it turns out that sometimes less maize is more maize. So helping communities and farmers develop their own solutions. It's about local partnerships, right? It's about this professor from Malawi making that commitment to change his country's whole approach to extension and then working with him. So he has this history of how he used to be master farmer, then it was technology transfer, extension, kind of this researcher over here, farmer here, being told what to do. And now we have this more empowerment, which is a really interesting time to be. And again, we have an example where this is the data that we generated on soil carbon, but I shouldn't say we generated because in fact, we spent 2 days training the farmers and extension. Extension then went to 1,500 additional fields on their own. It wasn't a project. We just they got that training, they got the reflectometers, they went off, they gave the recommendations. So now we're doing a survey to find out what did farmers think of that? What did the extension educators, the agents of extension, what did they think? So it's a learning process. We don't have a full story yet, but I'm very excited because almost 600 farmers, 1,500 fields, they got this information in a non-project basis. Other work that's related to this, nutrient expert work, I can say, has been, very successful in fine-tuning fertilizer recommendations here in Asia. And this has important implications for lowering greenhouse gas generation. So these apps, although we still need to keep working with them to make sure they're human-centered design, to make sure that they're used, they meet a need. But in these cases, we're seeing that you can reduce your fertilizer requirements, particularly combined with CA, without reducing yield, which is so important today, now more than ever. So incomes, of course, are generated from that because you go either the same or higher yield and less fertilizer, so your costs go down, particularly now. So I think these types of handheld devices and apps have a place. Sometimes they get overhyped, but I think they're really finding their place. Here's another one, a type of app from Mexico, and where I think this is really interesting because farmers can choose their benchmark. I remember we came up with a benchmark on soil carbon. So scientists are needed to determine how much soil carbon you need in an area for different goals. But farmers are very interested in comparing themselves to other farmers. Is this a high income for this area? Am I going to compare myself to other organic farmers or to the state average or to conservation agriculture neighbors? So they choose which sets of farmers they compare themselves. That's what we mean by benchmarking. So I think it's an interesting approach. Giving the data back, but in a very systematic way and also keeping privacy for farmers. So that's something about farmer empowerment. So finally, let's talk about more at the village level, community-driven, demand-driven, sustainable development. I think intensification is happening many places. In Africa, we still have discussions about how farmers don't have fertilizer. But in fact, in my experience in certain corridors, they're using lots of fertilizer, sometimes too much, because of their yield potential so low. So sustainable intensification, inclusive, including making sure that the poorest of the poor are at the table. That's our job as researchers, right? Because intensification is happening. I don't know, some economists might disagree with me. Maybe there still needs to be free fertilizer and so on, and politicians certainly want to see that. But in terms of sustainable, inclusive, reducing greenhouse gases, protecting water quality, there's such a big job for all of us, right? Because that's sometimes difficult to negotiate. But hub networks, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, is one of the ways we can do that. So there has been work, these big projects, USA supported, first there was Maize Wheat Consortium, and then TISA, which you may have heard of, and then Mas Agro in Mexico, which is part of the Mexican government. These are idea of hubs. So what do I mean by hubs? Well, we're still defining them, we're still developing them. In Africa, this is an aspirational one, the Sudan. Again, there are many countries that are crying out for help in sustainable agricultural development. So what if instead of bringing a technology, which sometimes CG centers, we're pushing fish if we're world fish, or we're pushing maize if we're world wheat center. But I think we need to move more towards thinking about scanning for scaling. So ways to look at all the technologies out there in a systematic way with the community. So by a hub, we mean basically such may or may not be a physical infrastructure at a local school or a local government office. You bring everyone together, look at what are the big opportunities there, what are the problems, and again, don't push a technology. See which time might be the best. Then developing inclusive value chains, like if you decide groundnuts is important in that area and a big opportunity, making sure that not just the local elites are able to capture that new value chain to make, say, peanut butter and bring it to market. And then but the private sector needs to be there too, in our experience, because often they're the ones that can actually scale this out in a sustainable way. There may be bottleneck analysis you need to do along the way, training of value chain actors so that the finance is inclusive, so that women feel empowered to be part of the, and youth and migrants to be part of the story. We want to see youth part of agriculture. Well, we need to train them to speak up, to understand finances. And finally, something farming systems we know very well, right, is this feedback loops, the idea of participatory or human-centered design. So we don't just push on a string, so we actually come up with fine-tuning of technologies that are needed for that area, supporting local innovation. Farmers may have an idea, they already want a cassava plant in that area, and then how do we help them actualize that and make sure it's an inclusive development opportunity. So this is a new project we don't yet have for sure, but we're just imagining it, co-designing it with people in Sudan. We'll see where it goes. But this is based on work, as I said, in Mexico, Mas Agro, starting with the scanning for scaling. So there's people sitting, seeing what technologies, like looking at, instead of saying, we're going to use nutrient expert here, we're going to use the SNAP agricultural app. No, instead we look at we scan all the types of apps for a particular purpose, for example, or all the value chain opportunities. So the idea again, scan for scaling. And then it joins this kind of hub, there may be research plots, in this example, might be private sector. It depends who needs to come to the table. Sometimes these have been called innovation platforms, but we've been calling them hub networks. So I recently got to be with these women in the field in Mexico, and what really impressed me was that the local government, in fact, the Minister of Agriculture for the state was there. The Heineken, sustainable barley, there was government extension. There was so many people. There was mechanization, people selling direct seeders. Everyone was at the table. And We had some big farmers, wheat producers who were quite excited about recent wheat prices, but they were very worried about fertilizers, just like here, you would have recognized them. Then there was also some smaller scale farmers, happened to be women, looking at water conservation. Their district had decided that water conservation was a big campaign, similar to here. It was residues to improve water infiltration, capture of water, plowing on the contour, things that our technologies everywhere to protect water. And this woman was talking about, at first, her neighbors were making fun of her because she was plowing on a curve instead of straight like you're supposed to. But she saw how it de-stressed her crops, and then it de-stressed her. But what I loved is she said, and these women helped me, because I assumed these were communications ladies, because usually that's the women in the room, but these were actually women extension. They were young, first time they ever had women extension in the area. And this, she said, it gave her the courage. It took a village, she said, to de-stress her, and having a few women at the table and extension was really making a difference to her. So that was pretty exciting to see. Obviously, wide range of different people and different, just giving you one example. I think you know a bit about CISA, so I won't go into it in great detail, but just to remind you in the region, some of the outputs from the hub work here in CISA in India, in Nepal, and Bangladesh have included sustainable intensification that's fit for smaller scale fields, new equipment, new mechanization. I got to meet with about 10 of these mechanization companies now thinking about selling into Africa. Very exciting to see the growth of that industry. I was here 10 years ago, and to see how it's grown now is very exciting. Because if you don't have the spare parts, if you don't have cheap mechanization options in the area, you know, it's very hard to import everything. So it's really good to see this homegrown industries that are now taking the world by storm. So we also have service, you know, seeing the laser levelers, which, to be honest, I still have a picture, a video, small video on my phone of seeing my first laser leveler, because I think that's something we could even use in North America, with the smaller medium scale farmers. You know, getting a level field is really so important for good water management, for nutrient management, and sometimes it's forgotten about. So that's really exciting work. And now you have service providers, some 40,000, providing that to who knows how many thousands of farmers every year each. So that's really an amazing success story. And then, of course, you know, direct seeding, it's not been easy, but you're making it happen here, which is very much about sustainable farming. And finally, something near and dear to my heart is whole farming system design to plant earlier, which you need the right genetics, you need the right mechanization. Then you can buffer that early seedling heat so that through the residues to make it cooler there so that the seedlings can get good vigor. Early maturity to escape the heat. And finally, that means you can do what? You can stick in mung beans. So I've worked a lot on legume diversification. So but you can't just say grow mung beans in this area, right? Even if the market is there. Difficult to do when you've got to get that rice wheat crop, which is maybe your cash crop. But figuring out how to make it 3 crops, that takes farming systems design, that takes genetics, agronomists, all working together, mechanization. And you have amazing examples here that are reducing climate risks, improving food and nutrition security, incomes. And so I just, you know, take my hat off to you on that. It's very exciting work. Here's just an example from these, again, long-term research platforms where we see that rice wheat fallow produces, to me, an amazing amount of grain, but you can produce even more if you go to something like maize, mustard, mung bean. That means your protein goes up. Right, so for nutritional security. That means your net returns are increased by some 30%. That means your water savings are huge, particularly if you get rice out of the system, as we all know. It's very challenging to grow rice without water. So diversification options, I know it's a big priority here, and I know farming systems is fundamental to making it possible for farmers to incorporate diversification. And, you know, legumes help us with fertilizer efficiency, which we need now more than ever. And soil health. So again, you can then calculate global warming potential intensity, some of the papers like in global change biology. Again, the future serial scenarios in these long-term experiments, measuring greenhouse gases, calculating them, very important for policymakers to understand so that they can hopefully invest. So this in turn means that once you get over these humps, and it is difficult, buying new machinery, I mean, I just don't want to say, it's taken years and years in some of these places, but now we have examples of how that can help support a new type of market. Because as I said, farmers may unfortunately get more and more pressure that they are the ones destroying the earth, but it's always so unfortunate to see poor people on the planet being told they're destroying the earth, when in fact they're the caretakers. And believe me, they want to improve the soil for their children, right? They want to improve it for their village, for themselves, but we have to help them get over those barriers, make it feasible. They have to feed their families, they have to pay their mortgages, right? So I get many very romantic students that want to save the world through different ways of farming, but they don't realize farmers have to pay their mortgages, they have to feed their families. So we have to make it feasible, and the prices are often not there. So what do? Maybe they have to be paid in addition for improving soil carbon. So I come back to where I started. These inspiring to me collaborations, where I think it's not been easy. A lot of people want to see farmers be able to generate carbon credits, which are then like a digital product that then companies can pay for and governments. But the payments for improving soil carbon and nitrogen mitigation, such as nitrous oxides, it requires monitoring, reporting, and verification protocols so that these are certified digital products that people will pay for. They can go back to the individual farmer that generated that. And supporting farmers to connect to these public-private sector initiatives, to me, takes hub networks. We have to move beyond our plot work and work together. So these can be clearinghouses to help modalities of bringing together the right public sector NGOs, public sector investments, and link to these new carbon markets. It's not been figured out yet, but there's some really interesting things on the table. And I think farming systems research is very fundamental to that. So I see a future of more sustainable agricultural systems that are more nutritious, that are more labor efficient, and that provide income so that it's sustainable for farmers, provide nutritional options. But how to figure that out needs to happen really at a local level as well as at a national level. And we need to me, document as we go, open data, so that we then take the knowledge. Of course, we're helping individual farmers, that's great, in villages. But in the meantime, the most important work we do is the new knowledge generation, right? And sometimes our tried and true randomized control trials, these ways that have worked for us, we need to also, these, whole village models, these are very important, absolutely essential, our foundation. But we may, in addition, need new ways to do science. I'm calling them new ways. Many of them will actually are built on farming systems research. You've been pioneers. I mean, there's co-designing farming systems with research platforms. Unfortunately, some of the long-term trials that I have seen in the past have disappeared. To me, that's a legacy. That's like throwing away your family jewels. It's really, we have to protect our long-term experiments, our research platforms, sell them to policymakers. This is the only way to look at soil carbon, because it takes time to make measurements and changes in soil carbon, right? The only way to understand greenhouse gases is these research platforms. Empowering farmers and communities to innovate. In the end, it comes down to their decision-making, right? And finally, demand-driven sustainable agriculture development. Development is occurring. NGOs and governments are making huge investments, and communities are trying very hard. But who along the way can make sure it's inclusive, to make sure that nutrition is addressed? I think we need the farming systems analysis. And so I really excited to be here today, excited to look forward to what's next, to learn what ideas you have on different research approaches, on what you're learning. And anyways, it's just a really great honor to be here today. And thank you again for your interest. And I hope that CIMMYT will be working with you in the decades to come. I hope and trust that we'll be working together. Thank you. And take questions from here, or should I?
Thank you, Madam, for presenting an overview of sustainable agri-food systems. Madam has aptly mentioned through her slides the market challenges for farmers and how the problem of greenhouse gases are posing a threat to our environment. She has also mentioned how conservation agriculture and crop diversifications are the way forward for addressing all these issues. She has shared the different research activities being undertaken by her organization, for which we are very much grateful to her. Thank you, Madam, for sharing your thoughts and experience, and we also hope for more fruitful collaborations with your esteemed organization. It's now the time to interact with our worthy guests for today's program. So I request all the participants to kindly give a brief introduction about themselves to our worthy guests.
Dr. Poonam, first let us have a discussion on the topic.
So I request the participants to kindly put forth if any questions are there to our worthy guests.
Thanks, really, it was very brief and elaborative talk. Cover all aspects of sustainable food production system. I'm really thankful to SNAP for giving a wonderful talk on the topic, and she had justified that. So I request my director colleagues to interact with Madam, who is available with us, and Madam, our all directors from 14 institutes, they are virtually attached with this program. So I request all my director colleagues to have any clarification or any suggestions for the betterment of science. Thank you very much.
डायरेक्टर्स का आने देते हैं वहां से ना डॉक्टर पुरस्ती देखो जरा कोई इसने हैंड रेज किया हुआ हैंड रेज हुआ है
all the participants, the directors of NRM institutes who would like to have an interaction, kindly raise your hands in the so that we can facilitate for the interaction. Dr. Himanshu.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate the director, Dr. Pawar, and all the scientists, technical staff, administrative staff, research scholars, supporting staff, and those who have been directly as well as indirectly associated with the institute for the achievements which it has obtained in last few decades. Unfortunately, of course, I was never a staff of this great institute, but I have been associated with the institute on various occasions, maybe for last 20 years or so. So I also take pride in whatever achievements the institute could do in the areas of farming system research, and also the emerging areas of natural farming, conservation agriculture, precision agriculture, and so on. And of course, of late, when, as Dr. Pawar was talking about, this natural farming concept is now coming, regenerative agriculture is coming. The institute is, of course, working on conservation agriculture for last maybe more than 2 decades or so. And many of the stalwarts who have been associated with this particular technology, conservation agriculture, site-specific nutrient management, enhancing use efficiency of nitrogen, soil health concept, and so on. I think they are also physically present there. So my compliments and congratulations to all of them. Just a maybe a little bit specific question to Madam. Madam, I really enjoyed the presentation. It was really informing, giving lots of example from African continents, Malawi and all. You know, in our country nowadays, we are talking a lot about natural farming. Probably you also know about it. And of course, the opinion is still divided. Of course, we feel that there is need of enhancing nitrogen as well as phosphorus and potassium use efficiency. We also fully understand that there is need of integrated nutrient management. We also fully aware that organic farming could be a very good option, provided we can make arrangement for all these resources. But can you throw a little bit more light and guide us how India as a country, as large as India with 15 agroclimatic zones, different crops and so on, how or in which direction we should proceed so that the natural farming can be profitable and of course going to be sustainable. So I'm just requesting your guidance on this particular aspect. Thank you very much once again, and my compliments to each and every one of you of the institute, those who are directly as well as indirectly associated with it. Thank you very much, Dr. Pawar and others. Thank you.
Director, I am so honored that you should ask this question. I wish we could meet in person. I hope in the future we can. This is, we're all really missing each other, and it's good at least we can meet virtually, but in the future, definitely in person. Thank you for this really important question. I think it's really fundamental. Even my own career, from the very first day I stepped off the plane in Malawi in 1993, people are asking how much can we use fertilizers, where do we use them, how can we improve their profitability, can we use natural farming? So these are fundamental questions, sir, indeed. I think that it's really a lot about the targeting, providing options. We shouldn't take things off the table, right? Because sometimes organic farming for certain maybe diversified areas near cities where people are willing to pay for that, I think these are really important options. And biopesticides, they're developing things we can all use. But other areas with very intensive cereal production, I don't know how we can do this without fertilizers. So improving their efficiency, right? We can all agree on that. Integrated nutrient management, I think we can all agree is very important. So that's maybe everywhere, but certain targeting natural farming, targeting some of these different approaches, I can't advise you so much as I will learn from you. Natural resource management is our fundamental to sustainability. So I think we are looking to India to figure this out for many different agroecologies. The hilly areas are important for other parts of the region. Semi-arid tropics, I work for ICAR-IIFSR, so because of semi-arid tropics in Africa, it has learned from ICAR-IIFSR all these years. So we really need to be a global community helping us figure this out. And I've always believed in all the options on the table, and then helping people target fit for use for particular areas, and then farming systems analysis to see what options fit where, what are the sustainability implications. We need all the cards on the table. Thank you again, sir, for that very important question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, madam.
All the other participants who have joined virtually, if you have any clarifications or any inputs regarding the lecture, you can raise your hands so that we can facilitate. All the chief agronomists from the ICAR-IIFSR and also the principal investigators of All India Network Program on Organic Farming. Please raise your hand virtually.
Let us come to the house.
Yeah, house. Meantime, we can discuss here.
Yeah. पहले तो डिस्कशन का ही बात करें, then we will introduce.
Congratulations to Institute, to respected director, presentation for this third Foundation Day. This is a very privileged to be here and hearing Madam very nice lecture on system management. I will not be speaking much, too much. Dignitaries are there. They will be interacting and enlightening us. And your lecture was complete. Many understanding has come. And I, as a soil scientist, I'm also basically a soil scientist. I could pick something which we can discuss one-to-one also. But one point I wanted to know, which can be a policy recommendation from this institute or from this meeting, that you told we are reducing organic carbon, our farmers, suppose we take Indian context, we are suggesting many technology, Dr. Pawar told many carbon neutral, carbon negative farming system they have developed, they are advocating. But majority of area, rice wheat area, we are facing terminal heat. We are deteriorating organic carbon status. And we are blaming poor farmers because they have to pay mortgage, they have to pressure their family with liability. So what policy recommendation in the house you wanted it, they should be compensated. So what policy recommendation should be there? It should be some measurable things should be there, so that we can suggest our policy planners that this much carbon buildup is there, you will be compensated by this way. So is there anything in your thinking which can enlighten us? Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that comment. In fact, I used to think as soil scientists, we just do our soil science. But I think on the world stage, there's discussions that somehow we need to be there, right? Otherwise, sometimes economists and others speak for us, which is fine if we're also at the table. So I think we really need to make the case that farmers cannot afford to do this on their own, that they need to be provided sureties, support for developing carbon credits. If they are improving soil carbon on their field, then shouldn't they be compensated? That's helping the world. It'll help them too eventually, but sometimes there's some years. It takes time to make organic agriculture work, to make conservation agriculture work. We know that there is an actual yield penalty at first, and we shouldn't. Sometimes we've tried to overlook it by putting a lot of manure in a place, then it works. But not all farmers can afford that. So to get over that, how can governments assist? Well, maybe if there were modalities of carbon credits. We know this, we hear it, but let's make use cases. Let's actually get a roll across sleeves. As farming systems, you know how to do this. Get to the village, make a use case, and then come to policymakers. We've made this work with these, well, I was going to say 10 villages, but you guys, you'll probably be 500 villages from everything I've seen. Make it work at scale, and then other states can take an example from that. So I personally think that how to improve soil carbon depends on the texture. Maybe I'm getting into the details that we could talk about otherwise, but how to actually do it in certain circumstances, we need to actually make measurements to see what works best where, have long-term experiments. But we know basic principles: improve the amount of biomass, right? Making sure that we protect through conservation practices, so preventing erosion and so on. So we know how to get there, but the modalities in particular fields, we need better data back and forth to see what to recommend where. But I think we have the tools. Now we just need to have the policymakers support this happening. So thank you for that. I think we're all very interested in what happens next.
I think that's a very valid question which has been raised by Dr. Manoj. So in this regard, we have some government intervention. So Dr. Ravi, can you highlight those ones? The reference to increase in organic carbon.
Thank you, sir. As per the Government of India set up committee, there is a task force on developing the policy on organic farming under the chairmanship of Dr. XXXIII, former DDG NRM. It was set up in the year 2015, and the interim report was submitted, and also the final report is also submitted, in which clearly it is indicated that the farmers who are adopting the organic farming and also enhancing the organic carbon level, soil organic carbon level to the certain extent, they will be given a certain amount of money. But that is the recommendation. It is in the implementation stage, it has not yet come. So already the thinking and also the means promotion, such kind of activities are also going on in our systems.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very nice presentation, ma'am, and informative. Thank you for that. My just suggestion or just a clarification required from you is, you said diversification for sustainability. Okay. Why not using integrated models also? So, and having one single crop rather than depending on single crop cycle. Why not have a farming just a model in which recycling of waste and recycling of the farm produce to increase the soil carbon content, as well as reduce the use of fertilizer and have prolonged sustainability. Why not opt for that?
Thank you, sir, for that important comment. And I completely believe in integrating at every level. We start diversification just in the field, then in the village, and models are essential. I didn't try to school anyone on models because you know much more than me. The House is very internationally known for this. So I tried to just show other options, but I totally agree that models have to be in the table. But before we go too far, I think that the organic farming, we just heard about policies, I think conservation farming is also there. And my esteemed colleague, Emil, has a comment as well, if that's okay, the House?
No, just to add on what Dr. Martin was asking, I think no, already there is a demand. I think what we need to do in terms of policy is not just depending on the government's money, because that's sometimes is a problem. I think we should be creating a science evidence-based business model. How can we, like what she was indicating, how can we trade the carbon so that there are people who can put the investment on the table, pay the farmers for sequestering that carbon. And I think there are a lot of with the COP26 and now COP27 coming in, where the private sector, so a lot of those industries are supposed to go carbon neutral by 2030. So that means they cannot stop their operation, they will still be emitting carbon. I think they can go and buy the carbon from the farmers. That's why time has come when we go for the carbon farm and generate those carbon credits, grow those regenerative agricultural practices. But that needs not only the science evidence-based business model. When I say it's inclusive of public, private, government, everything, and the farmer. And government can support in terms of the policy for trading carbon, but I think there's a lot of private sector. There are ways and means, but Dr. Kumar was indicating or payment for ecosystem services. That's a kind of incentive on carbon sequestration is one of the ecosystem services. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think if not now, then when are we going to do this, developing ways to compensate farmers for protecting the environment, right?
Good morning, madam. Nice lecture, and it was very knowledgeable to us for all of us. But my question to you, this is the recent questions come from the Lok Sabha, India. How we can promote crop diversification in India? Farmers are rigid, they do not want to change. This is the big question. And we are facing the problems how we can promote diversification, because everywhere farmers don't want change, because there are certain limitations with farmers. So what the scientists can do? This is my question to you.
Thank you, sir. Both of you are asking the hardest questions in my career because these are the fundamental ones. So I have great respect for that question. I have also been always working on soils, but through crops, right, diversification to improve fertilization. So I've put big grants forward, and sometimes they're too utopian, impossible for farmers to do. However, first, this is the center for the world's diversification. We have more pulses, more minor cereals, more here than everywhere, and it's the heart of the green revolution. So why not a green revolution around crop diversification? If anyone can do it, India can do it. And second, I think we can't ask farmers to give up their crops. So the triple cropping or double cropping, strip intercropping, I've always believed not just in green manures, like these are wonderful things, but how are people, you can't eat them, helps the soil, but people need to eat. That's why my double up legume system in Malawi, because we need options that fit within the current farming system, right? So maybe we need strips around fields. We need to use every bit of the land. I'm just coming from Bangladesh where they showed me rice fallows. I heard about rice fallows. By which they mean only one crop instead of 3 crops in the area per season. So a fallow is just part of the year. And I agree, much of the world is still fallow. We're not using 2/3 of the year. Of course, we have to use water efficiently, but we need to double and triple crop. Not to say replace maize or replace rice with maize, replace it. No, we have to have 3 crops where there's currently 2 crops. 2 crops where there's currently 1 crop. And then farmers can manage, because if there's a market there, they will manage to put in 1 more crop, absolutely. So I just challenge us to do more, help them come up with the 3rd crop they can fit in. This is the monkey example, but there must be more that we can make crop. And intercropping, you know, China's done that, even mechanized. So when people say intercropping off the table, it does use water, I know it's more debate. There may be strip intercropping opportunities as well. Maybe not in Bolivia, but in other places perhaps. So I look forward to what you come up with and what you co-design here, because I have a lot to learn from you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the Director Niazam is raised hand, so we can facilitate. Director Niazam would like to have it.
Thank you very much for giving me the second opportunity. My not request, rather just take one the query or maybe a suggestion. Dr. Jat and Dr. Pawar and Madam, currently the negotiation of the summary for policymakers for the mitigation option, the document which has been developed by IPCC, and that negotiation with the government is going on. And I am one of the members there. So my request to you, if you can send me 1 or 2 bullets, that what kind of policy interventions, whether it for carbon farming in particular, in agriculture, whether it's incentive or whether some kind of payment or whether some kind of policy instrument, if you can send me 1 or 2 very specific bullets, so it will be really helpful for me to put it in that particular negotiation, so that from the top level, from United Nations, these things also could be streamlined. This is just a very brief request to all of you to send me 1 or 2 bullets, maybe today, tomorrow, or maybe within the next 2-3 days or so. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll call you and we'll send maybe tonight. But that's a very important
Thank
thing.
you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And I just want to congratulate you. I'm really glad that you're there representing us. It's really, the world is in good hands there. And if we can help get the table with you in any small way, very happy to, sir. Thank you for asking for that suggestion. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gartula would like to have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one small point. Hello, I'm not a carbon expert, but I just wanted to make a point on like farmers don't want change. And just to mention here, in my opinion, like we are talking about lots of the innovations, technologies, implements we are making. But why farmers are so resistant for change? My concern here is that have we consulted them enough? Why aren't they changing? I mean, I have 2 kathas of land, and why do or how can I bear your new technology while I need to feed my family? So did we have enough consulted or have we consulted their concern? I mean, why are not they open for new change? Have we consulted them enough? Do we know their interest? What are their demands? And that's why Dr. Snap was talking about demand-driven sustainable intensification, demand-driven sustainable agricultural development. I think that's where we need to put our effort on. When we are talking about agricultural innovation, we should not forget farmers, not only farmers, we should not forget women farmers, youth, what is their interest, what is their preference, what is their demand, and perhaps then we can be more logical solutions to the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Snap and Dr. Gartola for addressing the queries of the participants. Thank you very much. May I now request Dr. N. Ravishankar sir to kindly propose a vote of thanks for this occasion. Dr. N. Ravishankar. So before that, I request the director of this institute, Dr. A.S. Pavarji, to kindly felicitate and present a token of love from the institute side to our worthy guests for today's program. In this regard, may I now first request Director Sir to kindly present the memento to our worthy chief guest of today's program, Madam Snap. Now I request Director Sir to present the memento to Dr. N.L. Jat Sir. Again, I request Director Sir to present the token of love to Dr. Jerome Bruce. Again, I request Director Sir to present the token of love from Institute side to Dr. Santiago. Again, I humbly request Director Sir to kindly present the token of love to Dr. Bhog. Thank you so much, sir, for doing this kind honor. May I now request Dr. N. Ravishankar ji to kindly propose the formal vote of thanks on this occasion. Dr. N. Ravishankar.
Very good morning to all. And we are very privileged to have team from CIMIC Mexico and also Wageningen University of Research, Dr. Jerome, and all the directors of NRM divisions on this occasion, 33rd Foundation Day of ICAR Indian Institute of Farming System Research. And I would like to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the institute, our staff, and also the director of our institute. And first, we would like to thank Dr. Snap for coming over here and delivering a very innovative and also the intellectual lecture to all our scientist colleagues at ICAR-IIFSR, chief agronomists, and principal investigators of our both national schemes, ACRP and IFS, and also the NPOF program, must have got benefited through your lecture. And Madam, you have highlighted a many important points which we can put it into our sustainable development of the technologies. And one of the things which I have seen myself is the important thing, de-stressing the crops will help to de-stress the farmers as well as the communities. So thank you very much for putting this concept. And also you have given, we have to choose the best model which are practiced among the global south, which can be implemented in the in India for de-stressing the farmers and also the communities. And a lot of discussion also held on the carbon marketplace, which is essentially required, keeping in view of the changing climate and also the reducing income from the agriculture and moving away of farmers from the agriculture. So under this scenario, this is a very important concept and we need to take it forward and to the policy makers so that it can help to the farmers to enhance their livelihood. So thank you very much, madam, for coming over on behalf of our institute and also all the staff of our institute and ICAR-IIFSR and UM. Thank you very much. And I would like to place on record my sincere thanks to my friend, my batchmate, and also our own colleague, Dr. ML Jat, for facilitating the visit of Director of Sustainable Agri-Food Systems and also the team from CIMIT Mexico and also from the Dr. Jerome from the Wageningen University of Research. And in the past collaborations with the CIMIT, we have achieved a lot of things. We have put a science into our farming system research in the form of farm design and also the farming system typology analysis. We also look forward to add more part of science and also the capacity building of researchers, especially at the national level. So thank you very much. I would like to thank Dr. Santiago Lopez Redura, who is also associated with us, with our institute during the last 3-4 years and has guided us, our scientists, especially many of our ICAR-IIFSR scientists, they know him very well. And he has guided all our scientists in preparing, in analyzing the data, this on-farm research data, and bringing out the farming system typology-based interventions which are implemented at the farmers' field. I would also like to thank Dr. Harivom Hartola from CIMIT for attending this our 33rd Foundation Day. I would also like to place on record Dr. Jerome Brut, who has come from Wageningen University of Research. And we are also working together in the Hidden River Basin project. We thank you very much for your time and also the inputs which we will be providing during the interaction meet. And I would like to place on record our sincere thanks to all the directors of the NRM institutes who have attended and also the wished our best wishes, extended the best wishes to the 33rd Foundation Day celebrations. And I would like to thank our director, Dr. S. Pandwa, who was the leader and he was facilitating us in arranging this all the throughout the day's events and also all the programs, research programs he is guiding during the last 6 years. And also, I would like to place on record my sincere thanks to Dr. Manoj Kumar, Joint Director, CPRA Campus, who has present here in this lecture and also interacted with the speaker. Also, I would like to place on record our sincere thanks to all the retired employees who are attending this particular program, the 33rd Foundation Day celebrations, and specifically Dr. Ajay Singh, former acting director, and also Dr. Prem Singh, former principal scientist, and many of the technical officers and also the administrative staff and other staff also who have retired from this institute, who have extended their services to this institute. They are also part of this today's celebration. So we also thank for your time and also coming over here and participating in this event. And I would like to place on our record to all the chief agronomists, junior soil scientists of ICAR-IIFSR, principal investigators of All India Network Program on Organic Farming, research associates, senior research fellows, and all the young professionals who are working in our scheme throughout the country in 26 states who have attended this Foundation Day lecture, and hopefully they will be taking benefit of this lecture in implementing the better, developing the better farming systems and also the technologies for the benefit of the farmers. And I would like to place on record sincere thanks to all our HODs of our institute, scientists, administrative, technical, and supporting staff, and all the contractual staff of our institute for attending this Foundation Day lecture session and also giving the support in organizing this particular event. I would like to thank all the committees who have directly contributed in arranging this particular event. The event is scheduled for throughout the day. Would like to place the chairperson and also all the members of the different committees who played a very key role in arranging all the important activities. And finally, I would also like to thank press and media people who have come here to cover the event on this 33rd Foundation Day celebrations. And I would like to inform to the House that we have throughout the day programs. Immediately after this, there will be an interaction meet with the CBIT delegates from 12 to 1 o'clock. And afterwards, all are invited for the lunch also. And in the afternoon at 2:30, we will be having a cultural program, which can also be watched through the virtual mode. All our PIs and co-PIs of the ICAR-IIFSR and NQF programs, directors of NRM institutes are also invited to witness the cultural events, which is organized at 2:30 p.m. onwards. Also, at around 4:30, we will be having the valedictory of the 33rd Foundation Day, in which the memorandum of understanding will be signed between the IIFSR and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel University of Agriculture and Technology for promoting the academic as well as the research activities. So this is the activities which are scheduled, and also we will be felicitating all the retired employees also in the valedictory session. So I request all of you to kindly be present until the end of the program. So thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. I thank each and every one of you for sparing your valuable time and ensuring their presence and making this day a memorable one. Thank you, everyone.
Interaction.
So we'll have interaction meet in the another committee room.
What about other